In 1943, a retired shipyard welder named Kenji Oda was living on 11 sen a day in a coastal town outside Yokosuka after the yard cut his hours to almost nothing. He stretched what little he had further with barley from a neighbor's field. That's meal number 8 on this list. In the same year, a soldier in the Kanto Hills carried a ration in his coat pocket for 4 straight days, through cold and rain, because it was the one thing in his kit that never spoiled and never crumbled. That's number 3. This is the food Japan's World War II soldiers survived on in the field, and the food their families were making do with back home, in the years when there was almost nothing left in the pantry. 10 meals counted down, starting with the one nearly every household had in common. Number 10. Canned meat ration. There wasn't much to it: meat, salt, and whatever fat rendered out in the tin, but a man in the field would crack it open with a bayonet or a rock, heat it if there was a fire to spare, and eat it cold if there wasn't. What came off the spoon tasted mostly of iron and salt, flat and plain, built to last rather than to please. By 1944, a single tin fetched close to 60 sen on the black market, more than a day's wage at the factories, so back home, families split one can across 3 meals and fried the next day's rice in whatever fat was left over. Making do, it turned out, could taste like something too. Number 9. Salted plum, or umeboshi. A plum salted and pressed under weight left to sour and shrink for weeks. That was the whole process. Patience doing what the kitchen couldn't. Bite into one, and the whole face puckers, sharp enough to wake something up in you before you've even swallowed. Salt for a full jar ran about 8 sen in the countryside, cheap enough that even the poorest household kept a batch going. Every summer, one plum sitting in the center of a rice bowl like a small red flag. Even with nothing else on the table, a house that still made these was a house that hadn't given up its traditions. Number 8. Barley mixed rice. This was the welder's meal, the one that carried Kenji Ota through his 11 sen a day. Nothing more than rice cut with barley, cooked the same way but longer, since barley never quite softens the way rice does. It chews hardier, a little stubborn against the teeth. Through most of the war, pure white rice sold for nearly 4 times what barley costs, which meant families who couldn't afford to sell their grain simply ate the cheaper kind instead, and called it dinner. There was a kind of defiance in that, eating what the market wouldn't pay for, and eating it without apology. Number 7. Dried seaweed. By the 3rd year of the war, a lot of kitchens had gone quiet. One plate sat where there used to be 4. And seaweed was one of the few things left that a person cooking alone could still gather for free. It came sun-dried and brittle, sometimes rubbed with salt, and there wasn't much to preparing it. Toast it fast over a flame until it curls and darkens, just seconds, or crumble it dry, straight over rice. The smell was low-tide and wood smoke together, faintly sweet under the salt. Coastal families who had nothing left to buy still had a shoreline, and it turned out a shoreline could still feed you. Number 6. Soybean paste soup. Whatever vegetable scraps hadn't gone into another meal went into this one. Dissolved with fermented soybean paste and hot water, left at a bare simmer. Nothing more complicated than that. The smell filled a whole house before the first bowl was even poured. Earthy and salty and a little sharp. And the warmth of that first spoonful sat in the chest longer than the bowl itself stayed warm. A tub of paste cost around 30 sen, and kept in a cool corner of the kitchen, could season a family's meals for most of a week. It was the taste of a house that refused to go hungry quietly. Number 5. Pickled vegetables. Radish, cabbage, whatever the garden had given up that season. Sliced, salted heavy, and pressed for several days under a stone or a bucket or whatever was heavy enough to do the job. What came out the other side was sharp and still crisp, sour enough to wake up a tired mouth. Salt for the jar ran about 8 sen and could carry a household through most of a winter, at a time when fresh vegetables at market cost 5 or 6 times as much for far less food. There was hope built into the act of preserving something today, knowing it would still be there to feed you months later. Number 4. Miso paste ration. With husbands conscripted and neighbors gone, plenty of women were cooking for themselves alone by 1944, and 1 tin of fermented soybean paste had to stretch further than it was ever meant to. A soldier carried the same paste in a small tin or wrapped packet, scooped it straight onto rice or stirred it into hot water when there was any to spare. It tasted deep and salty, almost meaty, enough to make plain rice feel like a full meal. And a single tin could season a week of otherwise bare food, at a time when flavor was the one thing rationing couldn't take away entirely. It was medicine measured out one spoonful at a time, the difference between eating and merely surviving. Number 3. Hardtack biscuits or kanpan. This was the soldier's ration, the one carried through 4 days of cold and rain at the start of this video. Flour, water, and a pinch of salt, baked twice, low and slow, until every trace of moisture was gone and the biscuit could crack a tooth if you weren't careful. On its own, it tasted like almost nothing, flat and dry, and faintly of wheat, until it was soaked in tea or broth and softened into something close to bread again. A single crate could keep a unit fed for 2 weeks when nothing else could be resupplied. Something built to last in a war where almost nothing else did. Number 2. Dried fish strips. Small fish, gutted and hung to dry until the flesh went leathery and dark. No cooking involved at all, just tearing off a strip and chewing slowly until it softened enough to swallow. It hit the tongue intensely salty, almost sharp, with an oily finish that lingered long after the fish itself was gone. Dried at home for free, a string of it could replace a week of fresh fish that would otherwise have cost 20 or 30 cents a piece at market. So fishing families hung it in doorways and sent their children off to school with a strip instead of anything sweet. It was protein that never needed a stove, a refrigerator, or a good year to exist. Number 1. Rice balls with pickled plum rice, salt, and a single sour plum pressed into the center. Hands wet and salted, shaping the warm rice around the plum until it held together in the palm, nothing more technical than that. It smelled like something made before dawn, plain rice turned into something worth carrying all day. A bag of rice split across a family for a week still found enough for one son to carry something warm out the door, packed by hands that had no way of knowing if it would be the last one they'd ever make for him. Long after the war ended, some of those mothers kept making the same rice ball every year, on the same day, for a son who never came back to eat it. Pick one of these this week. Just one. Don't make it standing at the counter. Set a place at the table, sit down, and eat it slow. Everything easy to reach today is built to ask nothing of you. These meals ask you to salt, to press, to wait, and that's worth doing at least once. Tell me in the comments, was it the barley rice or the rice balls that your own family still makes? These meals were never about money, and they were never about nutrition. They were about a person deciding, one more time, that they were still worth feeding. That's dignity. That's the last word.